Since I've started making videos about mechanical keyboards in early 2021, a lot of things have changed. Back then it was not only difficult to actually find something, but when you eventually did, you had to be able to afford it, and at the average asking price of around $300 to $400, this was easier said than done. But since then the prices have come down significantly, even reaching the sub $100 mark, making custom keyboards way more attainable than before. But that doesn't mean expensive boards have gone extinct. There are still $400 models out there. We even have brands pushing in the opposite direction, getting close to and sometimes surpassing 3 digits. But what do you actually get when you spend that kind of money? And considering the success and the overall reception of the far more affordable alternatives, should anyone even bother paying a premium for a premium? Whether or not anyone should be spending $500 on a computer peripheral is a question that I obviously can't answer. In the end, it's your money and your decision, but what I can do is tell you about my experience of owning both sides of the spectrum, on how far so-called entry-level boards have come, and what I think you should expect for a premium board, although you rarely end up getting that, as well as why the word premium, budget, entry-level, and everything in between is kinda meaningless. In order to visually aid my convoluted monologue about these input devices, I'll be using a QK65, which starts at $160, and the Link 65 that begins at $380 as references. Why these boards, you ask? Well, because I think they are very interesting in their own way, but they also share a very unique connection. Apart from the obvious fact that they are both 65% custom keyboards, fully mechanical and enclosed in metal, they also share something else. The companies behind them are essentially sister companies, so you could say that they come from the same household, which I think makes this a very juicy comparison. The Link 65 is made by OLAP, who is best known for their premium keyboards. Everything they've released so far was not only praised for the quality, but also for what it did or tried to do in the hobby. This board is no exception, from the screwless construction that lets you disassemble it by simply sliding it apart, to the unique PCB, among other things. QWERTY on the other hand is best known for their entry-level boards, helping enthusiasts and those who wish to dabble within those realms to do just that. They released their first board, the QK65, in 2022, and whether they were responsible for it or not, one thing is clear: after the QK65, the custom landscape was never the same. Now I have to say that this particular QK65 is of the second iteration, and since then QWERTY has released a number of follow-ups which not only changed in form but also improved in features and quality, to an extent that some of you might say that this comparison is out of date, to which I would say yes, that is indeed the case. However, I hope by the end of this video I will have successfully conveyed why none of that actually matters. But enough arduous teasing. Let's dive in and begin by checking out both boards before taking a listen to the often much discussed sound profiles, and then having a look at the accessories before finishing with the conclusion, or as I'd like to call it, the anticlimactic third act of the story. Time codes are in the description below if you want to jump. Let's go. One more disclaimer before we get started. A lot of things are subjective. I can't determine that the design of the Link 65 is better than the one of the QK65. I personally do think so, but you might not. Subjectiveness is the name of the game here, and something that is sometimes also a little forgotten. Both boards are nice in their own way though. Both have clean, minimal lines, and both offer understated looks that have a twinkle of detail when you start looking for it. Although I have to say that the Link 65 does offer more of that. However, more is not always better. Remember, it's subjective. I personally like it though, but that doesn't mean it's worth more money. The finishes are beautiful as well. Color options of course always vary, and with the Link 65, OLAP introduced a color called Starlight, which has a nice shimmer to it. This might be considered more special, but then again, the QK75 did have a Vampire Sparkles option too, so I wouldn't see this as an indicator of more value or premium either. The QK65 I have has the mirror bottom finish, and here we can observe a first visible difference between the two. Although the Link 65 features an equally shiny behind, and apart from the obvious construction differences, I feel that the QK65 is less refined. You can spot gaps and tiniest misalignments when you start searching for them. It is by no means bad, it's a very well made board, but comparing it to the Link 65, it simply can't match its level of perfection, which, considering how it is put together, makes it all the more impressive, but I'll get to that in a second. What the difference tells us, however, is QWERTY and OLAB's attitude towards manufacturing tolerances. Now, it has to be said that newer boards from QK have gotten much better at this, and it's only a matter of time before QK will make something that is just as good as the Link 65. So if higher priced boards don't start pushing forward in terms of design and innovation, the more affordable ones are going to start chewing at their base, if they haven't already. Looking at the Link 65 from the outside, we might assume that it is just such a case. After all, it doesn't look that different, but it's when you take it apart where it starts to get a little interesting. Whereas the QK65 is put together like a normal keyboard, as in it is being held together by several screws and contains elements like a weight, which is in this case the bottom, the Link 65 has a very unique party trick up its sleeve. By removing the top two rubber feet, you unlock the ability to disassemble it without having to remove a single screw, because there are no screws. Well, not really, but you don't need to remove them in order to get inside. This is the first area where I'd say the bigger price tag actually adds something. Not because it is better though, because it's not, but because it is unique and weird. There aren't a lot of surprises in the keyboard world at the moment. It's usually riffs on existing formulas. A list of the top most popular boards probably looks like the top 10 charts of your local radio station. It's a lot of collabs and remixes of songs you've already heard. Not this one though. To me this is a new song, and that's worth something, but again, it doesn't mean that it's actually better. To be honest, it's a bit over-engineered, the inside is unnecessarily complex, and I find the reach around that the ribbon cable has to do to be a bit questionable. On top of that, I wonder how durable this construction is long term, or when you keep opening and closing it. A classic design is tried and true, and this one here is, well, it's an experiment. The QK65 is almost boring by comparison. Weight, bottom, top, silicon and foam in between, all staples of current boards. How standard is this? Well, let's put it this way, $60 pre-builds come with the same set of features. Of course, comparing those to this is a bit of a stretch, but my point is that features such as these aren't exclusive to premium boards anymore. The mounting style is another thing the marketing team likes to deploy at large, and one that I find difficult, if not impossible, to judge. There are two reasons for that. One, it is entirely subjective. Think of it like the suspension in a car. Some people like a firmer, sportier feel, and some like floating around on a cloud. The second reason concerns acoustics, because whatever mounting style the board has, it must coincide with the rest. You can't just randomly throw gaskets, silicone, foam, and whatever else is trending at the moment into the board and call it a day. Well, you can, but the results might not be what you're looking for. That's why some of the most renowned classics have little to nothing special going on in them. They were either engineered to perfection beforehand or simply captured lighting in a bottle. Think of it like classic cars. They don't have all the advancements of today's gadgets on wheels, but all that tech sometimes can't hide the fact that the underlying car is just bad. I'm not sure if that comparison made sense, but I hope you get the idea. However, the mounting style on both our boards is pretty modern. On the QK65 we have the popular gasket system versus a leaf spring on the Link 65. Both are trying to accomplish the same thing though, to have a soft typing feel while giving you the option of adjusting it by being able to switch out the materials, like the different socks on the QK65 or the nails on the Link 65. Both accomplish this too if you ask me, and both feel great, but I personally prefer the leaf spring on the Link. Whether the system is the right choice for the acoustics though, I'll let you decide in the upcoming sound demo, but before we get there, I want to touch on a few more things. The plate and PCB are part of the same package if you ask me. It's a preference and they too need to match the rest of the board. On the Link 65 for example, we got a so-called slip PCB, which is inspired by bamboo slips. OLAB says that they created this in order to balance out the center typing experience to the more pronounced corners in a leaf spring system. I'd say they succeeded, but I wonder if regular flex cuts would have also just cut it. But just like with the screwless approach, I see this as an experiment for which I am willing to spend a little more because it dares to try something new. But again, it's not better. Special can be complicated and simple can be just as good. Even better because there's less things to break. The Monokai Neko, for example, is a tiny 40% keyboard that features a gasket system but nothing else, and doesn't even come with any foam or any other extras. The price? $390. That's a hefty sum for literally less keyboard inside and out. By the end of this video, I'm probably gonna sound like a broken record, but I'm gonna say it again. Just because you're paying extra doesn't mean you're gonna get extra, and extra also doesn't mean better. Anyway, sometimes there's also a daughter board. Whether you get one or not is entirely dependent on the internal design, and apart from the bonus that it makes replacing a broken port far more easy, there's a very small visual detail that I'd like to mention as well. On the QK65, due to the gasket system and the fact that the USB-C port is fixed on the main board, the cutout on the case needs to have extra space in order for the cable to not get decapitated. On the Link 65, however, we have a daughter board, and because of that, the USB-C port can be precisely as big as it needs to be. This is a tiny detail, but something that at a higher price point I would expect. Everything should be perfect, including the insides, which is another area where these two boards deviate from each other. A lot of times when customs are being advertised, you see these elaborate, wonderfully constructed insides, pieces of art really, but even this is starting to show up on cheaper boards, whereas the QK65 was quite raw. The 75, 80 and future ones are looking better and better. Again, taking a bigger, more daring bite out of the higher end market. Some boards push this to the extreme by intricately machining complex intertwined structures, which is beautiful for sure, but also a bit sad when you think about it, because you're hardly ever going to see what you paid for, as a lot of them end up looking quite similar on the outside. So a higher price, at least for now, can give you beautiful details, but functionally no real advantage. Everything else on the inside depends on the board and is not exclusive to a certain price range anymore. I have to mention though that the leaf spring system, at least as of now and to my knowledge, hasn't shown up on cheaper boards yet, so there is a bit of an asterisk here, but again, more elaborate doesn't mean better. Alright, time to take a listen. A few notes before though. To make things a bit more interesting, I'll be reusing the exact same stabilizers, switches and keycaps for both boards. And when I say the same, I really mean I'm going to open up one board and move everything over to the other. I will include linear, tactile and clicky switches for you to listen to, but right now we'll only have a listen to the linear ones. The tactile and clicky ones are at the end of the video. One last thing, I'm using old steps because they came with the boards and all three switches were provided by JawsFox, so big thanks to them and you can find the links in the description below. So what did you think? Which one did you prefer? Was it the Link 65 or the QK65? If your answer was Link 65, well, there's a bit of a switcheroo at play here that I hope doesn't get anyone riled up. I actually purposely switched the audio tracks, so what you thought was the QK65 was actually the Link 65 and vice versa. I'm not entirely sure if this experiment is going to work, but my theory is that just like with food, our eyes play a part in how we judge or perceive something, and over the course of this video I also placed my personal favors towards the Link 65, which may have colored your expectations. Just in case I made some of you incredibly furious though, at the end of the video, along with the tactile and clicky sounds, the linear ones will be present again and in the correct order this time, so if you want to get the full experience, it's at the end of this video. But think about this in the future when you listen to a sound demo. Is it really just the audio you like? Before we end with the conclusion, there is a part that I sometimes mention in my videos but mostly ignore, and no, I'm not talking about RGB because that I'm gonna completely ignore. I'm talking about packaging, the box and everything that comes in it. Normally I would skip this because as cool as boxes can be, most often they serve no purpose other than to keep your parts safe during shipping. But I believe that it is something a lot of people look forward to and are willing to pay extra for. Take Geist Machine, a company that started with a yet-to-be-delivered board that has an entry price of almost $2,000. Even I, who is about to tell you that packaging is pointless, am curious to see what they are wrapping a $2,000 keyboard in. If that thing arrives in an unmarked box surrounded by bubble wrap, I will be severely disappointed and a little upset. Boxes can have value though. For example, when a board is being sold on the second-hand market, a potential buyer might be looking for an original unboxing experience or to keep the value as high as possible for another resale, but that part is a little out of scope for this video. For now, I want to give you an example of what you can expect, or rather what you can't, when purchasing a custom keyboard, because the prices again don't dictate what you'll get. For the QK65 or any other QWERTY Keys keyboard, they always include a carrying case. Not only does it protect the parts during shipping, allow for handy storage or extra bits such as additional plates, but it is also a great place to keep the board stored after assembly. Link 65 on the other hand came in an arguably very interesting box, but one which is far less useful to me because you can't store the board in there after you've built it. Now you might say, why would you buy a $500 board to then just put it in a box? And that's a very good point, but in case you want to keep it safe, maybe for travel, you can't do it with this. Other pricey boards I acquired over the years are the same. The Neko came in a really pretty but useless box as well, and so did the thermal from Ramaworks. It continues like this with other accessories. QWERTY keys or OLAP are both unique because they always include their own brand of stabilizers with the purchase, which I applaud, but mind you, this is very unique to them, and any other brand that I've bought so far didn't do that. That doesn't mean this never happens, but it's not something that you should expect. Same for tools, stickers, or any other goodies. Some will include things like switch pullers, but it's not a common thing and really depends on the brand rather than the price point you're buying at. One notable exception here are pre-builds. There I think you'll get the most. From tools to cables to extra switches and keycaps, you get a lot, but that's an entirely different story. Alright, if you're still here, first of all, thank you. At the beginning of this video, I said that the word budget, premium, or anything in between is meaningless. That's because these words, as the comparison between the QK65 and Link 65 has hopefully shown, don't guarantee that you're gonna get something objectively better. Rather, the words define a price range. However, even that doesn't determine the quality. A couple of years ago, something like the QK65, 75 or whatever would have cost between $300 and $400, and in a couple of years, something like the Link 65 might cost $200 because everything is constantly moving and getting more and more affordable. But while we're getting better boards at lower prices, we're not necessarily getting better boards at higher prices. It's less of a shift and more of an expansion. It comes down to the economics of scale. Basically, if you sell 50 of something, it's going to be very expensive to manufacture, ship, market those 50 things because each of them has to make a high enough profit in order for you to break even. If you sell 5,000 of the same thing, the profit on each can be much lower because you're selling a lot of them. In other words, you can sell them for less while producing the same quality, and I think that's something that QWERTY Keys is really good at. They've managed to amass a very large fan base over a short amount of time and are by now trusted in delivering exceptional quality for a really good price, which they can offer because they know a lot of people will buy their products. They're also not alone here. Just check out Mode Design's Envoy. There's very high buzz around this board because it seems to deliver exceptional quality at a very low price, but again, Mode already made a name for themselves and can afford to make a lot of these. But just as they are popular and great at filling out ordering sheets, there are also smaller companies or individuals who are not, and those boards, they're gonna cost a lot of money even though they aren't necessarily better or have more features. It's simply because they are literally more expensive to make because there's fewer of them. But there are also companies who deliberately choose this path, artificially reducing the amount that is made for one reason only: exclusivity. Just like luxury brands in other sectors who refuse to sell their products at a lower price in order to be in a different playing field, so too do certain companies in the custom keyboard space. With all that being said, should anyone buy an expensive keyboard these days? Well, it's up to you. I still think if you are getting into custom keyboards, you should start with something cheap because whatever you may think you like, it'll change over time as you gain more experience. But if you've done that already and want to dip your feet into champagne, depending on what you already have, you might not get that much of a better product, but what you are getting is luxury. It's design, details, and maybe limited runs, exclusivity and experimentations, which all in their own can be a lot of fun, but whether or not that fun is worth that price, well, that's up to you. Hey, thank you so much for watching, and it's been a while since I've made one of these, but I hope you liked it and that it was somewhat watchable. Avi actually had a really great video recently on the same topic where he asked his peers what they think premium is, and I would agree most with Ansel. I think it's all marketing. I'll have the link down in the description below, so make sure you check it out. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I hope you're enjoying the approaching summer in the Northern Hemisphere, and for all of you down under, happy holidays. Thank you all, and see you in the next one. Bye!